Hey you! Welcome to the Icarus idea. Today, me and my guest will delve into what made him decide to travel the world and his experiences and development he gained on his travels. We'll also look into his current job in Amsterdam back in the Netherlands. So, let's go right into it. Welcome to the Icarus idea podcast, your source of inspiration for everything on industrial design. You might be used to seeing two hosts here for the episodes, but today it will be just me. But don't worry, we should start with having two hosts again from the next episode. I won't be flying solo though, because I'm actually accompanied by quite an experienced flyer in many senses of the word. So my guest of today is a former student of the UT, and after his bachelor's, a board year at Study Association Daedalus, and his master's Human Technology Relations of Industrial Design Engineering, he didn't know quite yet what he wanted to do professionally. So that's the point that he basically said, screw the standard career path, and he wanted to realize his lifelong dream, traveling the world until he didn't want to anymore. So he visited all the continents except for Antarctica, because why would you willingly freeze yourself to death? And he had many jobs on his travels to also sustain his traveling. Now, after more than 2 years, he's back in the Netherlands and he landed in Amsterdam and he has a job at Unplugged as a service designer. And today, he's here with me. So a big welcome to my guest, Ruben Pot.
Great, happy to be here.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for your time to be here.
Yeah, no
We
worries.
really appreciate it. And we think we have a very fun episode. You have to talk about your travels. Of course, everyone likes travel. So to get right into it, I think I wanted to start at the end of your student career. So at the end of your master's, I was wondering what was the final deciding factor that made you decide to go on your tour, and what was the lead up to this?
I mean, you say at the end of my student career, but let's backtrack just a little bit further. Because the moment where I basically realized that it was my dream to travel was when I went on the study tour with the Study Association as well. So we went on a study tour where we visited South Korea, Japan, and then we got 3 weeks off to basically travel wherever we wanted. And I decided to go to Vietnam. And when I started living the life as a backpacker, I realized like, hey, this is making me happier than I've ever been. This is what I want to do.
All right.
So then and there, basically, I took out a notebook and I sketched out a plan like, hey, how am I going to make this a reality? Because even though I was having the best time of my life on this trip, the fact that I had to go home afterwards was like a dark cloud that I saw it approaching me, and I was like, oh shit, I don't want it to stop yet. So then I realized, hey, what I want to do is travel, and then, travel indefinitely, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so, and when you decided to do this, so you were sure now, okay, this is something I'm going to do. What went through your head?
A certain sense of clarity, I guess, because like a lot of industrial design engineers, I'm kind of like a jack of all trades, and the fact that I'm not really specifically good at one thing makes it really hard to make a decision.
Yeah,
and
that's recognizable, I think.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people struggle with that, myself included.
Yeah, so it's literally you can do the creative stuff, the technical stuff, and there are so many things in between where you just. So if you don't have a clear path in front of you, it's like you can feel kind of lost, I guess.
Yeah.
And now suddenly it felt like I had a purpose. I had my dot on the horizon. I knew where I was going to go. And for like the 2 years that followed, it was on my mind almost every single day.
Yeah. And what were the most important things that you paid attention to? And the goals that you set for yourself in advance for this tour?
Yeah, so basically, when I took up my notebook, I wrote down a couple of principles by which I would live my life.
Yeah.
So the first one was basically I would get my master's degree, and the moment I had it, I would leave. I would go, but I didn't want to get my degree before heading off. The second one was to earn and save money wherever I could.
Yeah.
So for the next 2 years, like it's not like I didn't do anything fun, but I didn't really go to festivals. I did less holidays than I usually did, just to save up and get some side jobs and whatever, just to have the starting funds to actually start on a trip like this.
Mm-hmm.
There were a couple of other things like stay fit, improve my language skills, get my driver's license, which I didn't have at the time.
Okay.
Stuff like that. And one of the biggest ones was to not get a girlfriend, because I figured if I'm if I get a girlfriend, I'm not gonna want to go anymore.
You would have to take her into your luggage, I think.
Absolutely, No, so coincidentally, that's the one that failed.
Yeah. Okay. Oh well.
Well,
it happens. It happens.
That's a story for another time.
Maybe, or afterwards.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Perhaps. Well, behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes. No, but did your driver's license, did it actually help you? Because I can imagine that you cannot just use it anywhere, or it's not valid everywhere. So did it help you a lot, or in the end it turned out to not? Yeah.
At the first batch, the first part of my travels, it didn't really help much. But when I eventually got into one of the jobs that I did, it became really important.
Yeah.
It became crucial. Without it, I wouldn't have been able to get the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's quite an important thing then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you talked about staying fit, and what exactly was the reason for that?
Well, I think if you want to make the most out of your travels, I mean, it's you got to think about what do I want to do when I travel, and for me, it's hiking, exploring, going, staying up late but waking up early, and not every night, but you want to. And I felt like if I'm fit, I'm gonna get more out of my trip. At least if people ask me to go on a hike, even if it's like a 3-day hike, I'm ready to go. Yeah,
so you wanted to live life to the fullest, basically.
Absolutely.
That's how I know you anyway. So that's,
no,
I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went on a tour. Where did you start?
Well, I think it is important to note that basically I wanted to go the moment that I got my degree.
Yeah.
But the moment I got my degree was in the middle of 2020.
Yeah.
Which was a fun year for
us.
Yeah,
that
all.
was an interesting year. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I'd been working towards this dream for 2 years, and then the time was there to leave.
Yeah.
And I couldn't.
No, yeah.
So that was kind of frustrating.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, and this is when I made the decision, hey, I'm not gonna go into a job anyways, because I've been working so hard to basically get rid of all of my responsibilities.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna take up new responsibilities, because that'll prevent me from actually chasing the dream when it's possible.
Yeah.
So instead of, chasing what I wanted to do, I ended up living with my parents for another 10 months, which was it was fun, but not ideal.
No, okay. Yeah.
And then finally, when I got my vaccinations, I was good to go. But because it was still the height of COVID, to get back to your question, there was one of the few countries that was actually already accepting people was Costa Rica.
Okay.
So that's when I was like, okay, that's going to be where I'll start.
Yeah. So that was decided then and there because of the regulations.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I'd heard of it. It was a country that I wanted to visit. My initial plan was actually to start back in Vietnam, because that's basically where my last trip left off.
Okay.
So, but Southeast Asia was on full lockdown, so that was not possible.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And so where? Yeah. I suppose I know you didn't really make plans in advance, right?
Yeah.
So how did you go on with that? Did you really just go wherever the wind took you, or
basically?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
At least that's how I started.
Yeah.
I had no idea whether I was going to go north or south after Costa Rica. So either Panama or Nicaragua, because I did make the plans, I want to fly the least amount as possible.
Yeah.
Or at least go by land as much as I can. So basically there were some fun people heading over to Nicaragua. I was like, yeah, great. I'll tag along.
Oh yeah.
And then in Nicaragua, I heard that up in Mexico, there was gonna be the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Enormous festival, it's one of those one of a kind celebrations.
Yeah.
And with my timeline, it turned out that I could make it there just in time for the festivities.
Cool.
So that was my first dot on the horizon. Hey, that's gonna be my destination. So that's when I had kind of a timeline for the rest of Central America.
Nice. Yeah, I can imagine you experience a lot of those instances, or with special occasions or special celebrations.
A couple.
A couple. Now I want to go deeper into that. So what are your most favorite experiences that you've had through all of this?
Like mostly regarding like cultural experiences.
I think in general, and
Okay.
especially I'm interested in why they are so special to you as a person.
Yeah. I usually like one of the main questions I get, and I kind of hate this question, is what was the best thing of your trip?
Yeah,
Because
okay.
you know it's 2 years.
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
It's 2 years of my life,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to say like one thing that's better or than because it's so many different aspects.
Yeah.
So, but I'll like culturally speaking,
Yeah.
it's absolutely Dia de los Muertos was insane.
Yeah.
This was also the first year that it was allowed, kind of allowed to happen after COVID.
Yeah.
So everybody just went mental and in the most positive way. Like it was such a warm and welcoming celebration that
Yeah.
everyone was just, so that was just so special to be a part of. Yeah. And it's, yeah, no, they were like just welcoming as well. And they were so happy that people were there again to celebrate with them. And that was a very special experience.
Does that happen often for them? People from outside, so to
Oh.
say, to join them in those festivities?
Absolutely, yeah, no, it's like the carnival in Rio. Like,
Yeah,
I
okay,
feel like
yeah.
but I haven't been there.
No,
but,
okay, yeah.
but it's one of those things where you know people just fly in from all over the world to just be
Yeah.
there.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that big.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Nice. Well, then let's go into the jobs that you had on
Yeah.
your journey, because you had a variety of jobs. I assume to sustain your travels as well, because at a certain point money becomes a thing. Of course,
Absolutely.
I assume.
Yeah.
So how did that go? I've seen that you did some construction and you did voice acting even, and like digital animation
Yeah.
and gold mining.
Yeah.
So how did it come to be, and did you apply, or how did you get involved in these jobs?
Well, let's separate them into three different types of
Yeah.
jobs.
Yeah.
Let's say like some of them were more like the digital nomad kind of jobs. Some of them were volunteering jobs, and others were like proper working abroad jobs. So digital nomadism, like I tried it for a bit.
Yeah.
I did discover it wasn't for me. Because I prefer having my job right in front of me and just knowing like, hey, you know, having fixed deadlines and
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
but I did try to do some graphic design, some web design, stuff like that, just to kind of like get by. And I've met some other people who were like super successful at this. Basically, it allowed them to travel full time. Like there's this girl I met in Mexico who's now living in Argentina, and she's been traveling for 3 years, and she never has to come home if she doesn't want to.
Okay.
Yeah, just because she managed to get a job online just as a copywriter / translator, and you know, like once you get that up and running, you don't necessarily have to come back.
No, exactly. No, and I recognize that. Like some people really rather just stay traveling all the time and
Yeah.
don't come home.
Yeah.
I actually met someone on my journey when I was in Thailand.
Yeah, cool.
I met someone as well, and she just couldn't sit still, and she couldn't be at home for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So she just continued traveling and traveling. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense in a certain way.
Yeah, but like that was not for me.
No,
That
okay.
was too vague, I guess, and too like I did like I earned quite a bit on the side with that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was just I realized that it was causing me more stress than I wanted to have while I was on a trip like that. So
The working in itself.
well, just more like having like in the back of your head, like, hey, I still need to do this. Oh, but I'm
Yeah,
also
yeah.
doing these fun things like
Yeah.
that. But then you know you're just not really at ease because you know that there's still a to-do list.
Yeah. Is that similar to when you're now in the Netherlands, for example? Because now you have a job as well, of course. And I assume you also want to do fun things every now and then. So is that comparable, or is it completely different because you're in such a different environment?
I think it's mostly like if I block a certain amount of time, like, hey, that's when I'm gonna work.
Yep.
That's fine. Like
Okay.
that's when I can. But when you're really living the backpacker life, you really have to make those moments for yourself. And then
Yeah.
you're working, but people are still gonna be like, hey, want to go hiking? Hey, want to go check out this waterfall? Like there's gonna be. And of course you'd rather do those things. So I just realized it's much easier to just basically block off like a couple of weeks and then to just focus on one task basically. And that's where kind of I felt more comfortable with stuff like volunteering because well, there's two ways that I kind of used volunteering. On the one hand, it was a way to save money. On the other, it was to give myself a little bit more of like purpose, I guess. because if you're just living the backpacker life, you don't necessarily have a reason to get up every morning except for, hey, I'm gonna go have some fun. And that gets boring after a while. Like you don't really. Yeah, at some point you're just like, hey, but what's the point? And then you need to work on something bigger, and that's what I found in volunteering. Basically, I did some construction doing that. My first location was I helped an Italian architect in Mexico turn his mansion into an Airbnb.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like a big project.
It was a huge project. Yeah. I made a floor there, which was super random. But
Nice.
it was.
Are your initials in it somewhere? Or,
I did leave an Easter egg. I'm not gonna reveal where it is.
Okay. We'll have to find it, guys. Where is it? What is it called?
Puerto Escondido in Mexico. That's look for the Greek temple.
Yeah. Okay, guys, now you know where to go. Look for the Greek temple and find this Easter egg.
Yeah. So that's but I did a bunch of random stuff mostly while volunteering. So I did construction. I some voice acting.
I was curious about that. What did you voice act for?
Well, at some point I realized like, hey, I wanna have a couple weeks of just volunteering again. So I started looking on Workaway, which is a platform that can help you connect with people that have volunteering jobs available. And I was looking in Taiwan specifically, and I saw this listing that said Dutch voice actors wanted.
Okay.
And I was like, what's that all
Quite
about?
specific.
Yeah. Of course. Like, hey, I'm Dutch. Like, sign me up. Yeah. So I just reached out to them, and they were like, yeah, we're making this movie. It's about the history of Taiwan.
Okay.
And well, I mean, about 300 years ago, the Dutch were involved. As you know, we were in multiple places in the world. So, and basically, they wanted to tell the story of the full history, and it was an animated movie.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So, and they needed voice actors for basically people to voice soldiers of the Dutch East Indian Trading Company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. What is the movie called?
I think it's called Taiwan Trilogy. It should be out.
It is
year.
out. Okay.
Well, it should be out next year, but
it should be out
a
next year.
3-part movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know which part I'm going to be in, but and also because they the original idea was for the director that he wanted to make a real life like movie, and it's actually I started doing some research only after the fact, but it's the biggest film project that Taiwan has ever done.
Wow.
Which is actually pretty cool, but it's they wanted to make it a live action movie, but because of COVID couldn't happen.
Yeah,
they
that's
made
difficult.
it into an animation movie, but the director still wanted it to be as authentic as possible. So he still wanted to shoot on the location and whatever. So we went into the jungle, and there were people with cameras as well as like a reference for the animators. So there's actually gonna be a guy in the movie who has my likeness and my voice.
Wow.
Yeah, no, so that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
It was cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
One of the biggest Taiwanese movies.
Yeah.
And you're in it.
No, absolutely. I'm gonna.
Sounds amazing.
That's me.
Yeah, exactly. Will it be in theaters? Do you know?
Probably not in the Netherlands.
Okay. Oh, that's too bad though.
Yeah. But they told me that they'll send me a message when the movie is out.
Okay. So. Well, if you could please send it to us as well. I'd be very curious.
I'll send a screenshot of my.
Nice. Nice. Okay. And very quickly about the gold mining. Is there any interesting stories about that?
I mean, then we should have talked about it sooner, because that's probably the most interesting story.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. We have time. I am not in a hurry. I'll be here all day.
Yeah. No. So at some point I started to run out of money, and I needed to work because of my travel. I wasn't done traveling yet, and this was right about the time that Australia started opening up again.
Yeah.
And well, there's good money to be made in Australia working as a working holiday maker.
Yeah.
And I kind of heard that the East Coast is great for service industry. So like if you want to work at a cafe or hotels or whatever, but the West is where you need to go if you want to do like physical jobs.
Okay.
As a kind of like a rule of thumb.
Okay.
And I have more affinity with the latter. So basically I decided to go to Western Australia, and that's when I heard that actually the gold mines will pay you the most money for working over there. And then the idea of working as a gold miner, I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Do you get paid in gold?
I did not get paid in gold, but it wasn't far off of that. No, it was it was good money.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did the day-to-day practice look like when you were there?
So it's more of like a week-to-week thing,
Okay.
because basically you're like, I was settled in Perth. And I would live there for basically a week. Then they would fly me out to a mining site somewhere like in the middle of the outback. In this tiny mining camp. And I'd work together mostly with geologists, because we were basically all the way at the start of the mining process, where it was up to us to figure out, hey, where actually is the gold? Because we knew that we had an area of interest, but we needed to make like a 3-dimensional image of exactly like at 300 meters deep, there's a bit of gold over there. And then 20 meters up ahead, there's a bit of gold over there. So then the geologist could extrapolate like, hey, this is what the underground looks like. And this is what this area could yield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It was cool. And actually I honestly used my degree as an industrial design engineer, mostly stressing the engineer part as a calling card to talk my way into this.
Oh, okay. So that really helped.
Absolutely, because it's quite difficult to get on the mines. Because it's very good money, and it's also a job that allows you. Well, the kind of job that I had is a job that allows you to extend your visa. Okay, which is something
convenient.
If you've looked into traveling to Australia, then this is something that you'll run into. It's useful. So it's in very high demand. And I was lucky enough to find a company that basically realized that they can get relatively cheap, overqualified laborers in the form of backpackers that have, university degrees. So I was working in a team with a marine biologist, with an aviation engineer, with a pilot. There were all these people that were just like, well, absolutely overqualified for the job that we were doing, but that actually helped the company a lot.
I can imagine it. It makes for quite a merry company as well.
Absolutely, but it was kind of
jolly bunch of people.
No, but it was kind of like a win-win situation, because for us, like, it was still like, I mean, for them it was relatively cheap, but for us it was everything we needed. So
nice. And what about the work ethics in Australia that you noticed? Because I noticed myself when I was on my study tour in Australia, that I think, at least in my view and in my opinion, the way they design products over there is quite similar to what we do here. But I think their work ethics, mainly in the sense of working hours and stuff, and the pressure they put on themselves, is quite different from here, because they try at least to make less long days. And how did you experience that?
I would say that they definitely have a better work to life balance over there. I sometimes say, like, if you take an Englishman, a California surfer dude, and give him the work ethic of a guy from the south of Spain, that's when you'll have an Australia. And I think that's quite a good thing, actually. So because we were flown out to the mines, there was nowhere else that we could go. So we had 12-hour working days. So that was long days, but then you'd also get 2 weeks full time, but then you get a week off. But there were plenty of coworkers that would basically be like, I'm taking 3 weeks off, and you could pretty easily like shift around your hours. But I don't know if that's true for every sector, but I did hear that Australians tend to go on holiday at least once every 3 months. Okay. Like at least a small one. And they just enjoy life so much more. It's also easier, I guess, if you can just walk out of your job and go surfing.
That's true. That's true. No problem with sharks though? Or,
not every time.
Not every time. How much legs did you lose? I think
I'm still complete.
Okay. What is the most frightening encounter with an animal that you've had?
I encountered a baby puff adder in Kenya.
Oh, adder as in a snake.
Like a snake. It's not a good, because especially like I had a first aid training in Australia. So in the course, of course, they also teach you how to treat snake bites and stuff like that. And they clearly stress how much like baby snakes are way more dangerous than adult snakes. Because like whereas adult like venom is very hard to produce for the snakes, so adults try to ration it basically. They give you just enough to scare you off. Sometimes they don't even put the venom in their bite. But babies, they don't know that yet. So when they bite you, they give you everything they've got. So basically, if you're bitten by a baby snake, that's the end.
That's
of it.
the
and basically, I was working construction in Kenya, and I grabbed the rock, and there was a snake underneath, and it was like centimeters from my fingers, and
I remember seeing this on Instagram, I think, or somewhere.
It was not the best. It was you know, for like a couple days after, I really had like, ooh, you know, that could have gone very differently.
It already gave me the creeps, like from looking at it on the phone.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it was.
Yeah,
for you.
that was not the best experience.
No. Well, but as you said, so the baby snakes don't have the experience yet.
Yeah.
Of course, you've gained a lot of experience now, and I can imagine you've developed quite a bit as a human being on a personal level, but maybe also as a designer. So that's actually my question as well. How did this develop you as a person and as a designer? And what are maybe the biggest changes of your view on IDE, Industrial Design Engineering, before you left and right now?
Like all along my trip, I would identify myself as an industrial design engineer. And I think that even though I really wasn't doing any jobs that were even remotely like related to it, I felt like it was such a big part of my identity. And I think what you take with you is just a problem solving stance in life. So whenever you see something that could be slightly improved, you just tend to go for it rather than just accept it. So I remember on the mines, for instance, that we were working outside in like a yard with these laptops, and like we'd have to stop sometimes because we just couldn't read the screens because the sun was so bright. So, you know, it doesn't take a very long time for me to be like, okay, well, we've got some cardboard over here. Let me, you know, create
Let me be creative.
And you know, then problem solved. We can work for 2 hours extra. So the manager was happy, and, you know, that was but in general, I think what it really brought me, what I'm also noticing now in my job is two things. First of all, it broadened my perspective like immensely. One of the projects I'm working on right now in my job concerns public transport. And I just have a huge frame of reference to know what are other ways to approach it, like how it's done in Kenya. You know, it's very, very different from how it's done here, but there's lessons that we can take from that. And I noticed that like when we're in meetings and sometimes I say these things and they're not necessarily always useful, but they do make people think. Yeah. And so that's really useful. The second part is I mean, it's not necessarily, well, it's maybe not necessarily part of being a designer, but just as being a professional in later life. One of my main assets that I've discovered in my job is my network. One of my previous assignments was to improve the elderly care system in the Netherlands. And rather than having to do desk research, I can just call up a couple of friends. Because basically I just put on my Instagram story like, hey, I'm looking for people who work in the healthcare sector from all around the world. And like within an hour, I had somebody from the States, from Australia, from Denmark, and they were all willing to talk to me and just, you know, give me some views, some ideas. So, I mean, I guess it's also a part of helping to broaden your perspective because you just have a network. Yeah,
that's quite important, I think.
Yeah.
And so more on a personal level, you as an individual, what do you think is the biggest change if you leave the designer aspect completely out? And what do you think is the biggest development?
I think that the thing that I'm most grateful for to have developed it, I guess, is what I've come to call orchestrated luck.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is something like I started to notice a pattern that very good things started happening to me because basically I made the right call at the right time. And I do think that this is something that you really learn while traveling. So because to take a very simple like example again, like when I said before, like, hey, you're working, but somebody asks you to go to a waterfall or whatever, you have to make a choice. Like, hey, what am I gonna do? and you'd be like, oh no, I'm into this, but then you realize that but then you figure out that, hey, the next couple of days there's going to be rain or like whatever. And then you kind of, you regret not making that decision to go because, during the rain, it would be way better to do your work.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a very simple example, but the underlying, thought is basically that you become really good at knowing which opportunities to take at which time. And this is the main reason that basically I got into the job that I have now, because it was like, I stayed away for a full 2 years, but after the first year, I started realizing like, hey, although this life is amazing, I'm not getting the challenge that I need, because if you have a master's degree, you're and especially for industrial design engineers, we were taught to solve problems.
Yeah.
But the only problems that I had to solve is, what am I going to eat today? When am I going to sleep tonight? And that gets boring after all, because mostly the answer is just throw a little money at it.
Yeah.
If your money's running out, do a job on the side, because once you've cracked the formula, you can keep going for a very, very long time.
Okay.
And it's not a very difficult formula.
No.
So
did you already write a book about it?
No, it's I think it's for everyone to find out by themselves.
Okay,
yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
But so in that sense, basically after about a year,
Yeah.
I started realizing like, hey, this might not really be, and that's when actually this like a message popped up where one of my now coworkers was like, hey, my company's looking for new people, and I was like, okay, let's go into that. But then I talked to their manager, my now manager, and I explained my situation, and basically they were like, okay, but the match is there, but you got to go and live your dream and let us know when you're back. But that was like the first spark to start
exactly.
a fire, basically.
Yeah.
And that happened like, and especially like if you're on LinkedIn or whatever, you'll see most of these messages popping up, like people wanting to invite you for interviews and whatever. And it just happens. But knowing exactly at the right time when to take certain steps, I guess that's it's kind of like a soft skill that I, maybe in the last year realized like, hey, this is a thing. Like, orchestrated luck, because a very big part of it is still luck. Yeah. But it takes like to see the right opportunities and to take them at the right time. It's just
And is there any kind of step-by-step plan to at least try to influence your chances of doing it right, or is that really just a feeling that you have and then?
Well, it depends on what you want to do, right? Of course, like you gotta. I mean, I can give a bunch of advice on how you can prepare for a trip like that, or how you can. But I think you just have to. You just have to go and figure out what it is that you want.
Yeah. All right.
And because this is also something that I noticed when I made the decision that I wanted to go on this trip, basically because I was like, my goal is over here. Yeah. And all of a sudden I started meeting people that had the same idea, or that did it, or like, so I started meeting all these like-minded people, and they were there before, but I just didn't recognize them because I didn't know that this is what I wanted. Yeah. And I once read this metaphor for basically, you have the tuning fork, that you can, and some glasses start to resonate and other glasses don't. Yeah. Basically I retuned my fork. Yeah. And now suddenly different things started to resonate.
Oh, that's a cool metaphor.
It's and that's and I think that like having that thought on the horizon, like really having like either a dream or a goal, or maybe it's just something that somebody that you want to be or whatever. Once you tuned yourself like that, you will start seeing opportunities and connections that you wouldn't have seen before. Okay. So I think that's the start of orchestrated luck, tune yourself.
Cool. So as you said, the plans to go to Unplugged were actually already like halfway into your travels, I suppose. That's something I wouldn't have guessed. Yeah. But I wanted to ask something more about that, because I read that you thanked a couple of your friends.
Yes, I did.
For the smooth transition, so to say, back into the normal life. Yeah. And I just wonder, how did that go? What did that look like? What exactly happened?
Okay, so I have to take you back like a year before my trip even, because I was at a birthday party, and I met like I met this person there who was working at Unplugged. I just started talking about my master thesis because I was right in the middle of it at the time. And then she was like, hey, but that's very similar to a project that I'm doing. And then we just started talking about it for like half an hour. And I was just like, hey, well, you know, if you're ever looking for new people, this might be a job that I'm interested in. And this is where the luck part comes in. She never forgot about that.
Okay.
So whenever they were looking for new people, she sent me a heads up like, hey, we're hiring again, you know? And then we kind of kept in contact. And she eventually, she kept saying my name a couple of times, that the manager actually took notice because she was like, hey, this guy's been mentioned a couple of times.
I've heard this name too many times now.
Maybe I should go and check it out.
Yeah.
So my first call with my now manager was actually while I was on the mines, which was kind of a great story. You know? It's like, you know, there wasn't a kangaroo in the background, but there might as well could have. So, and my manager is actually a person that really appreciates basically people that go the extra mile. Yeah. Or not necessarily the extra mile, people that dare to do things different. And Unplugged is actually a company that almost never hires juniors, so people who are basically straight out of uni. And I'm an exception there. Yeah. Because basically, like partly it's lucky because my manager sees something in me. But you know, it's just things just landed on their feet. Yeah. And I think there's one other person that I thanked, which was actually one of my study mates. Because he came to visit me in Malaysia. Shout out to Duncan Lorraine. So he came to visit me in Singapore and Malaysia, and we'd done the same studies. We both did a board year. We basically had the same master track. We had very, very comparable study paths. And the main difference between our approaches was that he started working right after uni, and I started traveling. And then after about a year and a half, we met again. And we were kind of jealous of each other. Okay. Because on the one hand, he was like, yeah, you've been having amazing experiences and whatever. But I was jealous of him as well because I saw how much he developed after his studies, how much basically he learned as a business professional and the things that he could do. And that was the moment for me that it clicked. And I was like, this is what I want next. Okay. And that's when, I retuned my fork to be like, hey, now I know where I want to go, and it's over here. Okay.
And he went into that life straight after his studies.
Straight after studies, yeah. Because I mean, during COVID, you didn't have too many options, so you know that's what he. Okay.
But what makes you actually want this? Because you say, okay, that's when it clicked. Now I know this is what I want to do. But what exactly is that?
Well, I think it's a big part that what I mentioned before, the challenge. Yeah. Like if you're a problem solver, you want problems that are at your level, you know. And to be fair, one of the guiding principles while I was on my trip was if I'm not learning anything new, I need to move on. So you know, with volunteering, I tended to not go for longer than 2 weeks because after 2 weeks, I'd usually picked up on everything that there was to know, and then you know it became kind of still, and I wanted to. And I realized that when he was there, that I feel like the backpacking life taught me everything there is to know, or at least 99% of it. And then afterwards, you know, to really improve from there on out, I think you need to do something different. Yeah. And I felt like it was that time.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then let's talk about Unplugged itself. You work there as a service designer. Yeah. And many of our listeners, myself included, don't know exactly what it is. Yeah. So could you maybe explain in your own words what service design is?
I hope I can.
I hope you can too.
Like industrial design, it's very vague and very broad. But in general, I think especially at the company where I work at, it's really putting user-centered design into the limelight. So basically, you've got products, you've got services, and services are anything ranging from apps to customer support to the public transport system, you know, but these services also have their users. But like even if you're the best UX designer in the world, and coincidentally some of them work at Duolingo, they realized that with the design of their app, that basically whenever they had a choice, like either we can go this way or we can go this way, they wanted to predict like, hey, what do the users really want? So they tested this extensively, and like the best UX designers in the world had a 50% success rate of predicting which of their designs was going to be more effective.
Okay.
In other ways, like they have no idea.
No.
But you can flip a coin and you're just as good as the best UX designers in the world. So what makes a difference? Figuring out what it is that the end users want, and then making sure that their wishes, their needs are translated all the way back to the top.
Yeah.
And that you have this overarching view of a service, and you design it in every aspect. So that's the business, but also the experience aspect of it, just to make sure that everything is aligned and everything works and is feasible. Because basically that you just design a service basically in that sense. I don't know if it makes more sense now.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. And I think it has quite a big connection to people themselves as well, right? Of course. So I see the connection with your master's human technology relations. I see that. How would you connect it to IDE apart from that? What are the biggest connections you think, and what are the courses that you took during your entire career at the university that help you most right now in your job?
Well, HDR is definitely very related to this, but I work with a lot of industrial design engineering students, but mostly they're from Delft, and most of them did more the management. What's
the MOPD?
MOPD, yeah. So that's so there's a lot of people with that background as well, because it takes the business aspect much more into. So both of them are like a perfect fit for service design.
Yep.
Actually, the most relevant subject that I ever took was an elective from communication science. Okay. And I don't think it's actually there anymore, because it was called Design for the Servicescape.
Yeah.
And it was really about the psychology of time, and how to use basically colors and whatever to influence behavior. And there were like a lot of principles, like reversal theory. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
not really, I think.
No, but there were a whole bunch of principles that were actually super useful, and that like every now and then, like me and Duncan, we talk about it quite a lot. That those are the sheets that we sometimes still reference. Yeah. But the fun thing was that we were the only two industrial design engineering students there. Yeah. And all the communication science students, they were kind of like, hey, what's this course all about? And they were like half-assing it. And they really didn't think that it was useful, while we were like, wow, this should be, it was more useful than most of my HT. But then they ended up canceling the course because, well, it had a very low rating from the communication science students, which was a pity. Honestly, it was a great course. Yeah.
So it should have been a course in the curriculum of IDE, actually.
Oh, I think especially in HT. I could think of a couple of, at least one course which could have been easily replaced, and is definitely worth the 5EC more.
Okay. And what aspects of your job do you like the most at this moment?
For now, actually, to be fair, it's not necessarily the job. It's more like the starting out as a professional is more like the learning aspect of it. Yeah. Because that's why I'm here. I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life, but I know that it's the right time and the right place for me to be right now. Okay. So because everything is kind of new, I'm actually, instead of service design, I'm delving way more into behavioral research. Yeah. So how do you conduct proper research? How do you get good results? How do you engage? How do you basically recruit people to come to your surveys and whatever? And those are just really like essential skills that I need to have, like whatever I'm going to be doing in the future.
Yeah. And how would you say that you apply the lessons that you learned through your travel, to bring it back to that, to kind of make it full circle? The lessons that you learned during your travels, how do you apply them in your work?
I think the biggest part is that, it's where the personal and the professional meet. Because basically for 2 years, the only idea that was guiding me was my wants and my needs and how I was feeling about things. So right now in my job, I feel like I got this as a feedback from my manager, basically, that I'm making progress a lot faster than other people, because I'm very much in tune with what I need to do, so yeah, basically if something is going wrong, I'll see it coming way before it goes wrong, and I can divert basically. So I feel like just the personal skills of knowing, well, how you respond to things will just give you a head start. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we always end, I should say, the episode with the best advice that you can give to either our students or just aspiring designers around the world.
Yeah.
So what would be your one piece of advice that you would give to everyone?
I talked a lot about like knowing where you want to go and what you want to be, and but that's usually the problem, not knowing what you want. And
I can find myself in that.
Yeah, no, and this is what I had during my studies, but also afterwards I had it as well. But the one thought that really calmed me down. Do you want a quick answer, or can I go a little?
No, you can. Okay. You can take as much time as you want.
No, so it actually comes from Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Where Alice is walking through the forest and she's lost, and she just really doesn't know where she needs to go, and she meets the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah.
And she goes to the cat and she's like, "Where do I need to go?" And the cat's like, "Well, where do you want to go?" And Alice is like, "Well, I don't really know." And then the cat says, "Well, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there." And that's a lesson that really, that's a quote that really comforted me during, well, my master thesis, but also during my trip. Like a lot of times I had no fucking clue, but then the most important thing is, rather than to know what you're doing, is to just keep doing things. Like if you don't know what you want to do with your life, yeah, go ahead, go travel, go do different things, you know, just I don't know, just do whatever. And then the way I see it is like, you're here right now, you can take a step in a direction, you can always take a step back. And what I've come to discover is that it's never too late to go a different direction. It's not like you're taking this step, oh, this one is impossible now. You can, and from there on out, you know, if you've taken the one step, you can look around, see whether you like it, and go any direction that you want. And so just, you know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
How many times did you have to rewatch the movie to remind yourself of that?
Honestly, I haven't watched it. No, it's just it's one of the things that sticks. Not even without the movie.
yeah. No, but I agree with you. But I think for a lot of people, it's probably difficult to accept this. Maybe that's not exactly the right wording, but that because a lot of people, I think, are maybe a little bit afraid to have a delay. So yeah, how do you look at that? Because as you said, you can take your time, and if that's not the path you're taking right now is not the right way, you can step back and you can choose another path.
Absolutely.
But I think there are a lot of people who find that difficult.
Yeah, true, and it does require a bit of a step from the status quo, I guess. But to be fair, the status quo is kind of fucked up. I think like with this generation, or like our generation, like I think depression and burnouts and whatever are at an all-time high. So you know, something is probably wrong with the system. And like I once heard, like, I think it was an actor or something who said that, like, before you're 30, you need to do 1,000 things and realize that 999 of them are not for you. And I think that's a nice way to go by things. And well, like I said before, for me, the fact that I did it this way makes sure that I have a job right now that I really want to do. And also, like, people are going in and out of jobs all the time. Like, there's so many people that basically go straight into traveling, and then at the end of their 20s, their early 30s, they realize, like, hey, this is not what I want to do, and then they go and travel for 2 years. So for me, like, I've already done that, and I took that time to really figure out, like, hey, but now this is what I really want to do, and if you want to make something happen and have the right motivation to do it, you'll get there. You'll do it. Because, like, if I would have started working straight out of travel, I wasn't ready for it. So my motivation was like, I would half-ass my job. Yeah. And that's really not the way to go. And I feel like now, just in the past half a year, because I'm so fully motivated to go for my job, I'm making progress way faster than I would have done if I, would have started straight away.
Yeah. What did you say to me again before we started recording? Hakuna?
Yeah, so it's, In Swahili, the most famous Swahili is of course Hakuna Matata.
Yeah.
There's no worry, which is also very relevant.
It's relevant,
don't worry about it. But a lesser known Swahili phrase is Hakuna Haraka, which is there is no hurry.
There is no hurry.
And honestly, there is no hurry.
There is no hurry. Ruben, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
I really enjoyed this talk, and I hope it was very useful to the listeners as well. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and we're looking forward to the next episode, and we hope you do too. So see you then.